Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Chris Sost, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Hey everybody, what's going on? Chris from the Gig Economy Lounge here. It is a beautiful Saturday afternoon. The sun is shining here in Tampa. Enjoyed a little bit of time outside, and now going to do this podcast episode regarding the news that's all over social media about drivers at Reagan International taking matters into their own hands, if you will, and manipulating the surge or manipulating the Uber and Lyft platforms to create a surge at the airport. Now, on the surface, I would totally agree with this. As an independent contractor, if I were driving full-time, this is definitely something I would do. Now, where I think that they messed up is they got the news involved. Honestly, it's like the world's dumbest criminals. Except these aren't criminals, obviously. You know, whether they're violating the terms of service or not, that's a different matter. But in terms of criminality, I don't believe so. So you may be asking yourself, how are they manipulating the surge? Well, it's really simple. Everybody that's in the queue goes offline at the same time. It takes the queue from however many drivers in the queue to as close to zero as possible. Now, what that's going to do is it's going to trigger the Uber algorithm, especially at a high volume airport like Reagan, to start to surge. And it'll keep climbing, and then the drivers will all go online at the same time. Now, this works really well at a high volume airport like Reagan because everybody's going to get a surge ride that's going to have a surge adjustment attached to it. At a smaller volume airport such as Tampa International or any other airport really, what this is going to do is it's going to get you at least the minimum surge guarantee on your next ride. Which, hey, if it's $19, $18, $13, I would take $13 extra on every single ride from the airport. I don't know about you guys. But here is where I believe the drivers can get into trouble. Long ago, back when a lot of drivers, by the way, that this isn't a new tactic. They didn't come up with this. This has been around literally. I figured it out in 2015, early 2015, and I'm sure it's been around before that, before that. So this isn't something new. They didn't create this. They just started using it again. Back in the day, we used to use this at bar closing. So we would all be on a Zillow channel, for instance. It's a walkie-talkie app. And, there would be 20, 30 of us in one area. We would all be online. And at 150, we would tell all of us to go offline, and it would engage a higher surge rating. And then we would go online one by one, catching long surge rides from the bar crowd. Now, the reason that the drivers in Reagan could possibly get into real trouble, and I'm not going to say that they're going to get deactivated for doing it. Uber has many different ways to deal with drivers who do this. Number one, I believe, don't know, can't confirm, but I believe Uber pays for those waiting lots, as in they pay Reagan International X amount of dollars a month to utilize those lots. So if Uber is paying for those lots, technically what they can do is they can ask DC police to monitor that waiting lot. And if any driver is found to be in that lot and not online, they can be issued a trespassing warning. That's right. If Uber is paying for it, they have every single right to dictate who can be in that lot and what are the terms of being in that lot. Now, if you are in a market where Uber doesn't have a lot, and you just park in a generalized area, not a whole lot that can be done there. But once again, I'm focusing on airports that have paid waiting lots. So Uber and Lyft pay for these lots. I know Charlotte, they have a guard gate at the front, or at least the last time I was there, they did. And, they were checking everybody as they were coming in. Fort Lauderdale, International, MIA, all these places that have lots that Uber and Lyft are paying for, Uber and Lyft can dictate the terms of that lot, the usage of it. So you won't get in trouble for going offline and manipulating the algorithm. But they do have every right to have you trespassed. And then if you get too many trespass warnings, guess what? They can block you from getting, airport requests altogether. Which that leads me into my next step, which is if you think that Uber and Lyft don't know what's going on, you don't know the kind of technology that they have. I've joked around in the past about Uber literally knowing when you take a shit. I joke around about that, but it's about as close as being true as possible. With that, think of it this for a second. If you're going on and offline, and Uber is recording it because they're recording everything you do on their platform. They're recording every move that a passenger makes inside their app. They are recording every piece of data that drivers are doing on their app. So if Uber notices that 60 people all of a sudden go offline and all stay offline for roughly the same amount of time, and they didn't move, they're sitting in, the queue, and then they all go back online, Uber's not going to deactivate you. They want you to drive, but they can take away your access to the airport. They can flag your account for fraud. They don't have to prove that it was fraud. They don't have to prove anything. It's their platform. If they think somebody is committing fraud on their system, they are allowed to take action. So what's their first step? Well, they're just going to limit your access. So where, you're able to take trips from will be limited. And in arbitration, they will literally be able to pull up the data that shows not only you, but a whole other group of drivers at the same place at the same exact time, all going offline, and they'll be able to prove their case relatively easily. I don't feel like people challenge this. So when I see, posts on social where somebody says that their access, and this is real, they're no longer allowed to pick up at airports because of a high cancellation rate. It's real. They can do that. They're only limiting you at the airport. You can go out and drive in the city and pick up and do whatever you want. So they have a lot of leverage. They have a lot of power at the airports. And the biggest reason why is because they're paying for it. They're paying for those lots. They don't they're not given those lots. Don't get me wrong. They probably get a hell of a discount because, they have leverage. But if they're paying for a lot, they get to dictate the terms of that lot. You can do whatever you want in terms of the app. But if they're paying for that, they can trespass you if you're not online, waiting for an active request. The same thing is true in the waiting lots at events. If they really have a real problem that they have to address, they simply get law enforcement involved. And when somebody is alerted that somebody is on that property inside that waiting lot, and they are not online waiting for a request, they can be warned to leave or go online. And if that person chooses to argue, you're trespassed. And if you get trespassed enough, guess what? There's real consequences for those kinds of actions. So the news isn't surprising. I know for maybe a lot of new rideshare drivers, the idea of manipulating the surge seems like a stretch. Honestly, it's really not. Uber has a fundamental way of fighting surge manipulation, on a grander scale, which is to have more and more drivers. Because the more and more drivers are on the road, the less connected each driver is to each other. It kind of breaks up. Some people call it unity or coordination or whatever, but it basically makes it more difficult for drivers to manipulate the algorithm. That's just the way it is. It's their software. They own it. They develop it. They maintain it. They pay for the insurance for all these rides. They pay for all the marketing. They pay for it all. So, I know, we believe that we should have, more power than the companies, but, and we do to a large extent. But when it comes to, TNC lots that Uber pays for, that they are leasing or renting, or hell, if they own it, they can dictate the terms of that lot. Forget the terms of the app. They don't, like, at that point, it's no longer about the app. These are the terms for sitting in our waiting lot. If you don't like it, you can leave. And oh yeah, by the way, so they're not going to confront these issues, because if they confront it head on, that means they're acknowledging that there's a real problem. And Uber and Lyft, like I said, primarily Uber collects a massive amount of data. Like, you don't take a shit without Uber knowing. It's just that simple. So they know what you're doing, and they will allow drivers to reasonably milk the system. Been doing it for a long time on many different levels. The system is designed to be milked. It's not designed to be abused. And the abusers are usually the ones that get their hands slapped or get deactivated or whatever else comes about it, or has their access limited. That's another thing that they do. But everything that we do as contractors, now this is me talking as a driver, everything that we do as drivers that are beneficial to us, we need to learn to shut the fuck up. Like, don't talk about what you do that benefits you. Don't get the fucking news involved. Like honestly, how stupid do you have to be to do that in DC, out of all places? Literally the East Coast headquarters of Uber. And you have the audacity to bring the news out? What kind of fucking statement are you trying to make? Hi, fucking kick me in the face? Seriously. Like, what are you trying to prove? Are you trying to be a martyr? Like, that system is great. That technique is amazing. As a contractor, from the heart here, if you find 100 drivers to do that, and it works, shut the fuck up. Work it. Because eventually you're going to get caught. And eventually there's going to be a cure or a response to your actions. The longer you shut the fuck up, the longer your strategies will work. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Like, guys, like, be fucking smart about this shit. If you find something that works, keep it with you. Keep it with the people that you trust. Don't call up ABC fucking News and say, oh, this is what we got to do in order to survive. Like, come on, man. Seriously, I don't know if they still do it on ESPN, but honestly, I would really like to start a come on man segment for Rideshare. Because this is a come on man moment. Like, come on, man. Like, keep your mouth shut. Milk the system. Uber doesn't care about that. But guess what? When it gets dangled out in front of the public, and then the whole public knows, and then they have to deal with riders' backlash and complaining about this shit, guess what? Yeah, they have to take action against you. But if you learn to keep your mouth shut and just fucking do it, and don't let the news figure it out, even if you're approached by the news and they say, we hear drivers are doing this, be like, fuck, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't do that shit. I'm just out here trying to catch a ride. Honestly, that's all I'm trying to do. Like, just be quiet. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I know I might have cursed a little bit in this one, but I get passionate about things where drivers figure out ways to help themselves, and then somehow they just shoot themselves in the face. And they run their mouth, and then they ruin it for everybody. Like, when you find something that works, just be quiet from now on. Hope you guys have a great rest of this weekend. I hope you make some money today, tonight, whenever you drive. And on the next episode, I don't know exactly what I want to talk about exactly, but I know that an upcoming topic of mine is going to be all about if I were to create a competitor to Uber today, what are all the obstacles that I would run up against? And I'm going to go about this episode with questions that investors would have, because undoubtedly you have to bring an assload of capital to the table in order to do it. So in order to bring the amount of capital necessary to mount that kind of a challenge, the questions that will be asked of you are much, much higher than the questions that were asked of Uber back in 2009. Have a great day, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Like, subscribe, do anything of that if you find any value in what I say. Have a great one.